the case has been so misunderstood. That case, birthright citizenship, is about slavery. If you look at the details of it, the signings of it, everything else, that case is all about slavery. And if you view it from that standpoint, people understand it. But for some reason, lawyers don't talk about it. The news doesn't talk about it. That's not about tourists coming in and touching a piece of sand and all of a sudden they're a citizenship. They're a citizen. That is all about slavery. And even look at the dates on which it was signed. It was right at that era, right after the Civil War. And if you look at it that way, the case is an easy case to win. And I hope the lawyers talk about birthright, citizenship, and slavery, because that's what it was all about. And it was it was meant to be positive. And they use it now instead, not for slavery, they use it for people that come into our country and they walk in and all of a sudden they become citizens and they pay a lot of money to different cartels and others. It's all about slavery, and if you look at it that way, we should win that case. Okay.
All right, let's get to it. In January 2025, President Trump signed Executive Order 14160, protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. His goal is to end birthright citizenship for kids born to undocumented parents in the U.S. One word he keeps saying: slavery. He argues that the 14th Amendment was never meant to apply to the children of immigrants, only to free Black Americans after slavery. Obviously, this isn't just a legal technicality. It's part of a broader push to restrict immigration and reinforce the American identity as the Trump administration sees fit. Trump points out that birthright citizenship has been exploited, points to illegal immigration and birth tourism, and that it shouldn't even have gotten here. But does Trump have a point? So let's rewind. The Confederacy began surrendering during the Civil War on April 9th, 1865. Lincoln was assassinated 6 days later. Vice President Andrew Johnson ends up becoming the president. And as a former slave owner, he was not here to help. While Lincoln had a shaky plan to rebuild the South, Johnson wants to go even easier on former Confederates. He pardoned thousands of them, give them the right to vote, even run for office and become part of the government again. Meanwhile, radical Republicans in Congress had a different plan. They want to punish former Confederates, guarantee rights to the millions of free Blacks, and expand the government agency of the Freedmen's Bureau. All of this would ensure the South wouldn't return to become a slave society all over again. But as they fought for progress, Southern states fought back even harder. They wasted no time passing Black codes, laws that try to redefine slavery without calling it slavery. This, with sharecropping and convict leasing, created an American apartheid system in the South that will take generations to even approach or dismantle. Congress came back in session that same year, in December. Radical Republicans were outraged. Former Confederate leaders were now back in the U.S. government. That includes the Vice President of the Confederacy and even members of Jefferson Davis's cabinet. The very same people who led, supported, and funded an insurrection ending 700,000 lives were now back to make sure they can at least keep their Blacks as property and free forced labor. In response, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which overturned the Dred Scott decision and affirmed that Black Americans had the same rights as whites. And then came the 14th Amendment. It declared that all people born in the U.S. are citizens and that no state can deny them equal protection. Now, nowhere in this history do we see the word immigrant. What we do see is direct protection for the enslaved Africans that built the foundations of the USA. The Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment were made to combat Black codes and dismantle Southern oppression, not to address future immigration. We know this because some of the laws they respond to were literally called the Black codes, not people of color codes, not non-white codes. Native Americans weren't even covered or considered citizens due to this. Matter of fact, the primary drafter of the 14th Amendment, John A. Bingham put it plainly. Every human being born within the jurisdiction of the United States, of parents not owing allegiance to any foreign sovereignty, is a natural born citizen. So it's not surprising Trump keeps bringing up slavery like it's the magical word, because that's what the amendment was actually about. But here's where Trump's argument gets shaky, and birthright citizen supporters have a deceptive defense. In the case of Wong Kim Ark, a man born in San Francisco to Chinese parents, the Supreme Court ruled that he was a citizen under the 14th Amendment, even though his parents weren't citizens and couldn't become citizens under the Chinese Exclusion Act. Why? Because according to the wording of the 14th Amendment, he was born here. Herein lies the weakness, not directly addressing or taking action exclusively and blatantly for those foundational Black Americans in writing. Obviously, the 14th Amendment was meant only for freed slaves, but why wasn't that language written that way? Why hasn't any language ever been written this way constitutionally? The solution to anti-Black racism seems to always be so broad that it ends up covering nearly everyone, making loopholes, fail-safes, and moral propaganda ready for other groups. The Chinese Exclusion Act was specifically about keeping out Chinese people. Decades later, the 1943 Repeal Act was passed to specifically undo that injustice. When the law wants to exclude or include, trust me, it knows how to be specific. By the way, the injustices and cruelty done to Blacks being abandoned after the Civil War's Reconstruction weren't really revisited until the 1960s Civil Rights Movement, which once again resulted in nothing specific for Black Americans. So where does that leave us now? During COVID, Congress quickly passed laws and spent money addressing Asian American racism, even setting up hate crime hotlines in New York specifically to combat hate directed towards Asian Americans. Now, after everyday harassment and disrespect of Black people, police shootings, literal Klan rallies, and even church massacres, where's the rush for the Black specific protections? It seems as if the ones for the Asians during COVID popped up overnight. I'll go as far to say that if the 14th Amendment was specified to those foundational Black Americans, there'll be no debate about the 14th today. Now let's be clear. This isn't anti-Asian. It's not anti-immigration. It's not pro-Trump. Honestly, it's not even a call to action. Now is a moment to recognize how umbrella legislation plagues the USA by continually avoiding to correct the crime of American slavery. And let's be real, most people come to the US chasing proximity to whiteness, and when they can't keep up, they masquerade in solidarity with Blacks or ride a wave begun by us with no reciprocation.